So for this episode of Success Formula, we are actually in Austin at our lake house. So we have some friends that we met a couple of months ago here in Austin through a mutual friend that came over for dinner. We started to hear their story. We're like, we like these two, come on the podcast. And they said, yes, we will be there. So we are here in the living room with them now. We have Yillianna and we have Michael. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thank you both so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're honored.
Yeah, we had a couple of hurdles getting here tonight, but we're glad that we're here. So we heard you guys have a very interesting story. I don't know if it's just Michael or it's Michael and Yillianna, but I want to hear this story.
We both have an interesting story, but mine is crazier.
We love crazy. We love crazy.
Just because of the fact that, I was born with alcoholism and addiction. I didn't know it until I picked up my first drink at 15 years old. And I was off to the races, and I struggled with alcoholism and heroin addiction for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's why it's so crazy, and obviously
heroin, opiate.
Yeah, heroin, and it was all drugs, but my main thing that took me down was heroin and cocaine.
Yeah, and that's a hard one to recover from.
Yes, very hard. Tried multiple times, and then finally in 2009, through the grace of God, had a spiritual awakening and, just totally changed my life, did a complete 180.
So what happened at that moment in 2009 that you said that changed it? What made it different than the other few times that you had tried to, and you fell back on?
You can't really explain God, or I've never been able to, like that moment of clarity and like willingness, but I had never had that before. Like I would only go through the motions of knowing like alcohol and drugs are killing me and I need to get help. But I never had it come from my heart. It was always like a mental activity. Like I'm analyzing my life and it's in shambles. So I'm going to try to go to rehab or, put down the drugs and alcohol. But it never came from my heart and soul. And in 2009, it finally did.
Was there an event that caused it or was just?
No, it was no event. Like I had way worse things happen in the prior years that didn't make me stop. Like, like near-death experiences multiple times, hospitalizations, and that didn't make me stop. And the last time I ever used in 2009, I actually was working at a company full time, making multiple six figures, and had started a company that the owner was partnering with me on, or at least supported. I was doing downstream reselling for him. So externally, my life looked very successful, and I was doing better than I had ever done before. So when I quit drugs and alcohol and had that moment of clarity, it wasn't like an external thing that caused it.
I knew it was sales.
Yeah, it was sales for sure.
I had a feeling.
Yeah,
I don't know how you functioned, doing something that powerful.
Yeah,
how it didn't completely take over your life and how you even showed up at all.
It's crazy. You just adapt to your lifestyle. Like it just becomes a part of your life. When you're a true addict and alcoholic, when it's a daily, drive to do that, and you have the disease of addiction, it just becomes part of your lifestyle.
Kind of where we're from, we've been around and exposed to this, not only by family members, but friends.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, so I've been around this more than I probably want to admit in my growing up, so I've seen it. And I had friends that were, super intelligent, going to school to be biochemists that turned out to be meth addicts and, still not away from it. And one friend that, is homeless and living under a bridge currently. So I've seen these people try so many times. And so I know how powerful these drugs are. And I do know that a lot of people don't recover from the really heavy ones like that. So congratulations for being now, is it 20 years? Or
No,
how long?
2009. So 15 years.
15
coming
years?
up on 15 years.
15 years sober. So that's a big feat. So I know because of that experience, that took your life in a different direction to start a business.
Yes, I started the business like a year before I got clean and sober, but then when I finally had my spiritual awakening.
So what was the business that you had started in 2008?
The business I had started was the sales job that I had prior, that I was working at for about 4 years before starting.
So you said downstream. So is that oil and
gas?
Yeah,
we're doing no downstream computer hardware. So we would get truckloads of like end of life computer hardware, tear downs, asset recovery. So it's not common now, but back in the mid 2000s, early 2000s, companies would lease, or sometimes they still do,
I
like
remember
Bank
that.
of America or JP Morgan.
I was about to say, who was a customer?
Yeah, they lease all of their laptops.
Yeah, that's why they got
Yeah.
something new software every single year, new hardware and
Exactly.
software. Yes, I
Yeah.
remember that too.
So the company I was working for that I was doing sales at, and that I just randomly got that job
Mhm.
while I was in my addiction. You know, a friend of a friend's like, go talk to this company. They've got a sales, job opening. And I'm like, I can do sales. So went and applied for it. I had no idea what I was applying for, but I was really good at it. And I learned the business over multiple years. So that company I was working for had contracts with HP, Dell, different asset recovery, large national contracts. So my first company was being a downstream reseller and refurbisher for that company.
And how long did you do that for?
The company's still around. I actually turned the company over to my father. My father is a zero risk taker. He's an engineer.
Oh, yes, we know what that
a
means.
computer engineer, and he does everything like from a caution standpoint. So he's not an entrepreneur at all, even though he could have been like wildly successful, probably even more than me.
But he's farming it, and he's doing a great job farming the business that's already there.
Yes,
Just not a
he just
not a
doesn't
hunter.
like risk at all.
Yeah.
He has like a very low risk tolerance, and I'm the exact opposite. Like, and it's from my lifestyle, I think, too. Like recovering from alcoholism and drug addiction, like risk doesn't scare me anymore. I'm like,
Yeah,
I've
'cause
dealt
I've been
with
there,
way
done
more
that.
stressful things.
Were you always like that when you were a kid, being an
Yeah,
entrepreneur?
no, I
like
was. I
selling
started
candy in
business,
school, or
yeah, I started businesses. Like my parents were divorced, so I would go stay with my dad for summers every summer, and there was a cul-de-sac that we lived in, and I would always like get all of the kids in the cul-de-sac. I happened to be like a year or two older, and they would be like 2 to 3 years younger than me, but I'd organize them and get them to go door to door and sell candy for me and then bundle it with a car wash. So
Sean used to do that too. Sean, tell him the story about your
Hey,
mom
you
taking you
wanna
to Sam's to
buy
buy the
candy?
M&Ms.
I would make my mom take me to Sam's Wholesale, and
that's
I'm like,
no, I did that. It was
Yeah.
it was called Price Club.
oh yeah,
in
this was
California
Sam's at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
Which
like,
turned into Costco.
Yep.
It was
Yeah.
like a 20 pack of M&Ms.
And I would
I
stop
would.
and
No,
buy
that
all-
was my exact business model because my dad
Business
loved
model.
shopping at Price Club. Like
Yep.
he still to this day shops at Costco. So I was like, Dad, buy me the 20 or
Yes.
whatever the wholesale packs are of Hershey's and Snickers, and then I'd break them up one piece and
You
sell
do the
them
math,
door
it's
to
like
door.
25 cents.
Yep.
You're selling it for $1.
I would take
Yeah,
4 times,
exactly.
multiples.
And I got little kids to sell it who are way cuter than me. So who's gonna say no to a 7-year-old?
No, and that's what I think about being an entrepreneur. I really think most of us, not all of us, but most of us are just born. It's innate. It comes with a sales job first,
Yes.
which turns into being an entrepreneur down the road and starting your own. And when I was a little kid, we didn't have a lot of money, but my grandmother had a really messy garage, and I would beg my mom, take me to grandma's house. I know she's got a
I'm
lot
gonna
of junk in that garage, and I'm going to sell it at a
There's
garage
stuff
sale.
I can find.
And we would go to Apple Tree, which is now Kroger, and I would make poster boards and make garage sales. And she'd
That's
wake me up
awesome.
at like 6 a.m. I'd go put all my stuff out, and I'd have like a $500 garage sale. She's like, I cannot believe. And I just thought this, I never wanted to spend any of the money. I wanted to save it.
Yeah.
There was a bank that had alligators in it in Alvin, and I was like, take me to the
That's
alligator
amazing.
bank, and I want a savings account there. And I had like $2,500 saved up of my, garage sale money. But I do think that comes naturally to some people. So it doesn't surprise me that you were in sales. You kind of moved into this. You started your own. How long did you end up before you gave up the company to your father? How long were you running
the
that?
company right about the time, like a year after Yillianna and I started Infinite Recovery and we got married.
And
it was
he's-
right around that time.
Michael's also being super humble. Michael's a very humble guy, and I don't know if that comes with being in recovery or it's just Michael being Michael. But I mean, that company really was so successful and it took off.
It was
And
very
he
blessed.
was in Inc. 500 for 20th fastest growing company, like only 3 years in.
Yeah, on our third year, we submitted. It was crazy. I saw an email come in from one of our buyers who put that in their email signature. They're like Inc. 5000,
Yeah.
attend or honorary Inc. 5000. I'm like, I wonder if we would qualify for that. It just sparked my interest. I'm
Yeah.
like, this company is Inc. 5000. So I submitted it. And then randomly they called, and they don't call
You
everybody.
think it's like a spam call at first. You're like, what?
Yeah, and they're like, this is Inc. Magazine. It was like the actual editor from Inc. Magazine, and she goes, hey, we just wanted to ask you, like, you've qualified. They don't tell you where you rank, but this is before they published the article, and they're like, you've qualified. We'd love to just hear. We're checking in with I guess they pick random companies and check in with them. like they checked in with me, and then she's like, what? Because I told her my story. We hired exclusively people that were in sober living, like people that had
Yeah.
graduated detox and inpatient. And I told her, she's like, so tell me about your work culture and like all this stuff that, business magazines ask. And I'm like, well, actually, we have a very unique work culture because everybody's in recovery, and, we hire them directly out of graduating from inpatient treatment centers. And she's like, what? Tell me more. And then she ended up featuring us as one of like the main stories in that article.
That is super awesome
Yeah.
and great for your company too.
Yeah. And it was just all like coincidental that she like fell in love with the story.
I love that.
And the tagline for the story was giving people and electronics a second chance.
I like that you do that, but I just can't even imagine in the world that we're in today. I mean, this is also like 10 years ago plus. What was your experience with doing this? Hiring the recovering addicts? Did you guys help cover if they needed to go back, or if they kind of fell off the bus? Were you guys patient with them? Did you guys hold their job for them and send them off to recovery? Or
Oh, absolutely.
how did that work when something like that happened?
Absolutely. And we still do to this day, Yillianna and I.
Because I feel like in a world where everyone gives up on you, right? Because
Yeah.
it is a disease.
Yes.
That you guys were giving them second and third chances sometimes,
Yeah.
to keep their
Yeah.
job and to keep their life and have a reason to live and a reason to come back and get out of it.
I mean, the company I worked for that helped me, was my supplier when I started my first company. He gave me 50 chances. So I always remember that. I'm like, he never gave up on
Yeah.
me. He would always rehire me. Like he would eventually fire me because I'd disappear for like a week at a time. It's like, Michael, I got to fire you. Like I
Yeah.
can't. Like it doesn't look fair to the rest. Him and I became very close. Which is why when I offered him, I'm like, hey, I want to start this company. I can be a downstream reseller. And I made it what I could do for him. I'm like, I'm going to provide you so much value. And he's like, no, I love that idea. And he's like, I'll supply you, you resell, and we can do profit sharing.
Well, that's
So
awesome.
he gave me so many chances. I can't even count them. So it's
Well,
my
that's-
way of paying it forward. Plus, I'm in recovery, and that's one of the principles of recovery is service.
So after you did this, you ended up giving off to your father. What did you do after that? After the company's out of the way, what is your next big project?
So based on the work culture that we set up at MHD Enterprises, we had at one point 50 employees that were all in addiction recovery. They were all, recovering from alcoholism and drug addiction. That was my main passion, was the people that I hired and worked with. Like the business, like I said, I kind of stumbled into that business by just interviewing for a sales job. And then I'm like, holy crap, this is a big industry. And like, found out that there's a lot of way to make money in this industry, especially in the mid 2000s. Hardware was so expensive. You guys remember, you guys
Yes.
are in business. Laptops were thousands of dollars, just like Dell, HP laptops, not even Apple. And then parts were very expensive, spare parts to repair, because everything would get repaired because people wouldn't buy new because they spent so much money on their, computers and servers and everything else.
Were most of the employees all sales guys? Like,
No, it was mainly warehouse. Like it was
Really?
heavy
Okay.
warehouse work because, at the height of MHD, we were getting sometimes a 52-foot trailer a day.
So what
At the
city was
warehouse.
this
So
in?
we would
was
have
this,
to
was this in
unload
Austin or is
26
this is in Austin?
26 double stacked pallets and break them down because it's like treasure hunting. We would buy by the pound and sell by the piece.
So where were you
So-
getting these commodities from? Like where were you getting these piece parts? Were these
So
brand
we had
new parts?
We had a downstream contract through the old company that I was working for. He was the authorized refurbisher, not the authorized refurbisher, the authorized recycler for Dell and HP. So like most of the end of life and
Okay.
stuff that was, picked up from JP Morgan
Yeah.
Chase, they would send in like their 4,000 laptops that they had on lease with Dell, and Dell would send them the latest. Every 3 years they would get upgraded.
Yeah.
So we would get those 3,000 laptops and get to test them and part them out or resell them or recycle
like
them.
polishing turds, like we talked about earlier. You just polish the turds.
There's a lot
make
of
'em
money
new.
in it back in the day.
Did you buy them refurbished, or they were already, all your guys did some of the refurbishing?
We did in-house refurbishing. We partnered with a lot of companies in China. I used to go to China quite a bit back then. So we had partnerships and like offices set up in China to do refurbishing because they did it so much higher quality and a lot cheaper. And then also a lot of the stuff was just parted out and resoled as well.
Yeah, I can't even imagine the logistics on that. My brain is
It's
exploding of
actually
how you divided that up in your warehouse to what needed what parts and how things didn't get confused and get stuck.
The industry is called reverse logistics. It's the reverse logistics e-waste recycling business. That's like the category of business. That's it.
So then from there, how did you guys meet? Because I feel like this is around the time that you guys meet up.
And that's, but
right?
the reason I shared that my passion was the culture is because that's what Yillianna and I also connected about. You know, she loved being of service. She was Miss Texas, first runner-up Miss USA. And like her whole platform before Miss Texas was being
giving
of
back,
service, giving back. She's just got a servant heart. She wants to help people. She wants to make, you know, a difference in the world. And that's what we really connected on. She loved what we were doing at MHD. She loved that part of the business.
Yeah, we met through a mutual connection, and it just happened to be at the time that I had, you know, also just won Miss Texas. I'm originally from the Valley, from McAllen, you know, small town, and there was you know, just never a Miss Texas before that. So my big passion and like purpose was like going out into the community and like, you know, a lot of young girls would come up to me and say like, you know, one day I want to be just like you. I want to be Miss Texas, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. And how does someone from the Rio Grande Valley, which is so small and it's, you know, predominantly Hispanic girls, how does someone do that? And so I would just, you know, go out and share, you know, a little bit about my story and, you know, help other young Hispanic girls like believe in the beauty of their dreams. Then when Michael and I met in 2014.
Yeah, end of 20.
He was on the Steve Harvey show. I had seen like a clip of it too. And then we had a mutual friend. And
what were you on the Steve Harvey show for?
Yeah.
for MHD.
Oh, okay.
For the Inc. article.
Yeah.
The Inc. article, like everybody read it, and Steve Harvey's executive producer was like, this story's crazy. Would you be on our show? I'm like, I'm not going to say no to the Steve Harvey show.
So you saw him on the show, you said, before you met him?
I saw him on the show. I had not met him yet, but just had like a mutual connection.
Okay. So you knew of him when you saw, and you're like, ooh, I like that guy. I got to meet him.
I was really inspired by his story.
I said his story.
Yeah, I was really inspired by his story. And then we ended up, you know, meeting up months later and ended up having like very like minds. And, you know, even though we come from two totally separate lives, I've like never done drugs in my life.
Didn't even know the names.
Like I don't know anything about drugs or anything like that. And here's this guy who's done like every drug.
I can help you with whatever you want to know about. I got you.
And nobody in your family. It was just like completely.
I was just like very inspired by his story and his passion and purpose. And so we ended up, you know, connecting. And then right about that time too, I was just graduating from college. So I was 22 years old. I studied communications at the university. I wanted to go into business. I wanted to maybe do something that was like pageant related because I had, you know, just come off of that streak. I wanted to start my own business. And then I was kind of like asking Michael, you know, pointers and tips and how do you start and all of this. And he was like, I'm actually, you know, I'm thinking of starting a recovery business because I've been hiring people in recovery now. And that's about the time we started dating too.
You also wanted your business to
I wanted to have a give back too.
Yes, that was a main point.
Yeah, and I think I saw you do you have a foundation now? I think I saw something. I somehow went on a wormhole and saw something today.
Yes. Yeah. So that was like a huge passion of mine too, was like, I wanted to do something. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, I just want to help people and like help communities in need. That's actually like we started talking a lot and we came up with Heartwater together, but simultaneously Michael started opening up sober homes.
Yep.
And so Infinte started. I guess we can talk a little bit about both.
Yeah.
So your worlds collide and then two businesses are born.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah. And we call them brain babies too. We're like, we had our two brain babies.
Yeah.
Well, we can't even really go in chronological order, I guess, because they both kind of started simultaneously. It sounds like I thought one came before the other.
Before.
It was sober homes.
It did. It was sober homes. That's what, you know, I had started like literally the week that I met Yillianna.
Yeah.
And then she was like, we can scale this and do more services. And then that's when her and I like opened up an official treatment center, which we started as an IOP and then grew it from there.
Yeah. So with
I don't know what IOP means.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was about to say
You got to break it down
So-
for us.
I'm
we don't
sorry,
know.
it's so common for me.
for people that are not in recovery, which I'm not in recovery, I was like, what are all these terms? And I have no idea what's going on. The way that Infinte was started was like kind of reverse of the way that a patient comes in and goes into treatment. So it started with sober living, and IOP is intensive outpatient therapy.
Okay.
And then we did residential after that.
PHP.
PHP.
Yeah.
And then that's partial hospitalization.
The
And
acronyms are
and then there was residential, which is like the traditional 30, 60, 90. I'm
Yes.
going to rehab.
yeah.
And then we did detox. And so it's literally the exact opposite in the way that, like, if you have someone who needs help, they start with detox and then, you know, they get everything out of their system. Then they go into residential, the 30, 60, 90.
So how long does a detox program take?
It depends on the person. And
You said 30, 60, 90, kind of just depends on how bad the...
Detox is usually
Shorter.
5 to 7 days.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And then once they detox, I'm the one that's not even
No,
in
but
recovery.
she knows it like the back of her
I'm like,
hand.
you should talk about this.
No, no,
So,
no.
so
you
this
know
is
it
your
like
business,
the
but now
back-
it has different like levels,
There's
right?
so
Or
many
different
levels.
types of treatment
And-
plans. It's not just one,
Correct.
you know.
And in Texas at the time, there wasn't there's so many different treatment centers, but there wasn't a treatment center that was doing the full continuum of care, you know, the all encompassing program.
Not just
So,
part
like, you
one
had
and hope for the
someone-
best.
Right. You would go to like detox at a big hospital like Seton, or
Yeah.
that's where Michael went,
Yeah.
you know, like a big
6
hospital.
times.
And then you go into the residential, like, oh, you know, I'm going to go to rehab. So I've got to go, you know, for the 30, 60, 90 days. And then you have, partial hospitalization where you're having therapy all day and you go home and to a sober home typically. And then, you know, the outpatient after that and sober living. And so there wasn't a company at the time in Texas that was doing the full thing. And Infinte was like the first company to start that. But we started reverse, you know, started with sober living,
Most
going
drug and alcohol treatment centers, behavioral health is the industry. They start with the inpatient, like Yillianna was saying.
Whenever you first open, where do you get the patients from? Is it from the hospital? Is that who sends you the...
Well, like Yillianna said, we started in reverse, so we already had the patients. Like
Yeah,
we started
exactly.
with sober living.
You already had
so
the contacts. You knew the people that needed help. They
and-
had
and-
friends.
right. And sober living is like the least barrier of entry too, I think, for starting in this industry.
Well, is there like a license that has to program
Sober
this to go along
living
with
is
this?
not licensed.
Okay.
But anything with clinical therapy is licensed. So
Okay.
the OP, IOP, PHP, inpatient detox, that's all licensed.
And I feel like whenever somebody here in Texas has a problem, or what I've heard in the past, people that I know, this is, you know, a little bit more past tense before.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone's getting shipped off to other states because, like you said, there wasn't anything offered here. I feel like California was like the place that everybody went, just because they were
Exactly.
so like 20 years ahead of us in this market.
Right.
Exactly.
But it's nice to know that there is something here and someone could be close to home, right, and still get help too.
Well, and the other thing too is, I mean, like I said, I'm not in recovery,
She
but
knows it like the back of her hand, though.
Now I do.
Yeah.
But, you know, just hearing like that you have to go to one place for detox, you have to go to another place for residential. And so in the big book and in AA, they talk about like being a chameleon.
Community.
And
Yeah.
like Michael says, like in his story, like, you know, every time he went to so many schools growing up, and maybe that had something to do with his drug and alcohol addiction later on in
uncomfortable.
life,
Yeah.
where you become this chameleon. But so like when you're doing that in treatment and in therapy, imagine like you're going to therapy and you're just getting comfortable with someone, and then you have to go to a
I know.
totally different therapeutic place.
especially when you work so hard to get there and you feel comfortable with those people and comfortable where you're at, why
Exactly.
ship them off to somewhere else? That seems like that would be a breaking point to slip back into it,
It
making
is.
that
No,
transition.
it really is.
Exactly.
It's like the candy's there on the counter, you know, you're moving over. What makes you not want to reach for it if you're stopping or you're going somewhere
And
else?
you've already
So,
spent this time, like Yillianna said, like lowering your wall.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
addicts and
It's
alcoholics
like I just
have
got
a wall up.
comfortable,
Yeah,
and
and you
now
had
I
to
have
start
to go
over,
start
yes.
a new therapy process somewhere else. And so
And nobody has the same therapy models. So you're getting all these mixed messages, and ours is completely vertically integrated. So they work with the same ecosystem, the same, a lot of the same therapists we're all collaborating through all levels of care.
And they
So
can
that's why it's
communicate.
very
Yeah. The
unique.
different therapists can communicate
Exactly.
before they move on to
Yes.
the next thing, like what this guy's deal is, here's how he likes to be treated
And
or
our
talked to
family
or whatever.
programs integrated. So we
I love that.
literally offer every level of care, including family program, vertically integrated.
It's funny because, we started doing that and simultaneously, doing Heartwater together, but
The ideas for Heartwater. yeah.
right, which we'll talk about
Yeah.
in a sec,
Yeah.
but me not being in recovery, and I'm not like, I don't necessarily deal with patients or, on the day to day, but
You actually do serendipitously. Yeah,
now
but
I do, but
Well, as you're an entrepreneur, you kind of do everything. She's the front desk
Yes.
manager.
right, exactly.
She's like
when you
a-
going
start,
to
and you're
notarize a
like
document.
trying to,
Bookkeeping.
start every little thing, but with like no employees too. So you're like got to be the jack of all trades. It was funny because I was like learning this as we started, but where I came in the situation or like with, Infinte was a lot in real estate, which I know both of you do a lot. And Sean, I know you really, do a lot of refurbishing and a lot of real estate. And so that's what I do for Infinte. And we were, growing pretty quickly. And, we had a detox and a residential center, which we came in and, completely refurbished that property. And I fell in love with that. And so,
and the interior design, like the whole thing,
the whole
from A to
process,
Z,
right?
yeah.
And then it's like, okay, you're filling up this many beds. Like, we've got to go out and get another property. Okay, now we filled up these beds. Now we got to go out and get another property. And so that kept happening.
How many
And-
beds do you guys have at each location? Because I know these things aren't very big.
So
You hold 20 patients at a time, or
So it's different. So our detox center, which is a hospital, it's like our first entry point that everybody checks into and admits into. That is licensed right now for 45 beds, but it can go up to 90 beds. It's a 24,000 square foot hospital. Then we have a 40-acre ranch.
so for that one, did you build that from scratch, or you found an old hospital there where something was
a
built to
memory
be
care
something?
facility, like a very high-end memory care facility that couldn't run the business.
Memory care?
Memory care is like assisted living,
Okay,
like
got it.
Alzheimer's.
But
Yeah.
before we moved into that
Oh, yeah.
location, it was a 17-bed facility in South Austin.
Yeah, but
SNDO.
she was asking the current
Right.
number of beds.
Right.
So we've got in total about 250 beds right now.
Wow, that's amazing.
What's the average size of one of the facilities that?
I mean, they vary. So our hospital's 24,000 square feet. Our inpatient center that's on 40 acres in Buda is 45,000 square feet. And then the homes are right around 4,000 to 5,000 square feet.
On all of the homes that do you actually have a different design for each house, or is it all the same?
I try to keep things pretty consistent. One,
But
like,
personalize it to that house.
I do, and it is gender specific too. So
Yeah.
like for one of the women's homes, I created vanities because obviously
Yeah,
I
they
love
don't do
hair and
makeup.
makeup.
Yeah.
And
So
I think it's
unique.
also very
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
these ladies that are now starting their lives over again to
Yes.
have to, we teach them also, they'll go into a training of like how to get a job. Some people have never had a job
Counting.
before, things like that. And so, and it's so crazy. Like when you see, some of these clients come in and, both men and women, like they're so, they're hurting and they're broken. And then you see them like a couple weeks later and they look like a completely different person. Like it's just absolutely incredible.
Well, I always say when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you do good too.
Exactly.
That's kind of like what
Liliana's
Dress for
philosophy
Success does for
was-
people too. I don't know if you know
Exactly.
what Dress for Success is, or I don't know how big it is. I know it's in Houston, but
Right.
giving them a little something to feel good about themselves and give them confidence is going to help them get to that next
Liliana
level.
is so big
Right.
on that. She's like, the confidence is key. They're recreating their lives. So she built, like, I've been to sober livings. Like before we started this, I've lived in them myself. There's no place that has vanities. It's like the
Yeah.
room with the lights on the
Y'all the Rolls
like,
Royce
like
over
truly
here.
they're in like a salon. And it's just Liliana has the touch on every property.
Well,
knows how to make it feel
So I do
Home.
try to keep things kind of uniform just
Yeah,
for the brand.
branding, yeah.
And right.
Yeah.
But of course I do try to also tailor it to, male, female, things like that.
and the aesthetics of the house, and each house is unique.
Do y'all own every property that?
Yeah, we do. We're getting involved in different development projects. So we're going to be developing now on the 40 acres that we have in Buda eventually. But yeah,
Really cool. Or the
we
people?
usually buy and then refurbish. We don't develop from the ground up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's real cheap.
my main
Yeah.
thing too. It takes too long and there's too many permits
Way
and like
too long.
you can't have to
You're
plan too
you,
long.
You
I hate
kill
it.
the momentum of the business.
Yeah, it's so hard.
And there's just something beautiful too, I think, of like taking, something that was once, and it's very, kind of like with someone that's recovering too. It's, you're taking something that like was broken and like making it beautiful once again, and just
That's my addiction is
Truly.
Yeah.
It is like a drug
Like,
addiction.
I'll
It's
still- I don't-
Ileana's too.
I know.
No, to a
I don't
T,
really
she
need
gets
to remodel
obsessed.
houses anymore, but I just still really like it. And so if I find the right one, I don't do a ton of them, but I have to
Oh,
buy it.
I
and I'll-
threatened him with a divorce last week if he bought one more. And what did he tell me today? There's about to be another house come up for sale on that same street.
That
I'm
would
like,
be
you
Ileana.
serious?
No, literally with commercial or residential.
Yeah,
she's
commercial's a little easier for me because it's
Yeah.
not so detailed and you can kind of make a white box out of it and try to
Yeah.
find a tenant. But on the residential side, it's super detailed and we're finishing up one right now. But yeah, she told me, she was like, you better swear to me you're not going to buy
I actually had my
one
pinky
more
out at a
property.
restaurant, and we
Yeah,
don't. Him and I
'cause
don't
she like
fight,
lost
but
her mind. Like she was like, we have to finish the 2 houses that we're in.
we got in a fight about a week and a half ago. It was
Yeah.
pretty bad. I was like, I'm serious, and he tells me today, he's like, I found another one. I'm like, oh my god, here we go again.
That's sometimes
funny. That
with-
sounds like us.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I don't care as
Ileana-
long if we had both of our like homes. Like, sounds
Yeah.
like, do you realize how freaking bougie you sound right now? Like you overheard at Brasserie, that Instagram page,
Oh,
which you guys
that's
wouldn't
so
know what that
funny.
is probably. But I just don't want to live in a world of construction anymore. I want to finish up our 2 like primary properties, and then after that, you can do whatever the hell you want on yourself. I don't want to live in the middle of it. I'm tired of it.
It
We've been
sounds so
buying
funny.
so many, and we didn't even own.
Yeah,
we were
so-
leasing this whole.
Yeah,
time.
we've been married 8 years now.
Oh, your
It's
own personal home
going
you
on
released?
9
Yeah,
years.
yeah, that's right, that's
We're
right.
just
Then
now
buying so many
getting
other
our
homes.
actual house. Yeah, because we've been doing, just
that's-
pouring everything into
Owning the
business.
properties is so smart though.
We've been living in a
long-term,
hotel for
like-
8 months, so
You
we're not.
get you get a ton of real estate arbitrage.
Yes, big
when you
time.
Do the OpCo.
But I do understand the craving for it too, because I love like I said earlier, polishing a turd. I love seeing something distressed and almost unfixable. Some of the stuff that he buys, like it should be just bulldozed. And he's
Right.
like, no, you don't understand. Like just to get this slab and just these 2x4s up, that would cost $75,000. I can get this for $30,000. I'm using small scale numbers here, but I mean
Right.
it's crazy what he does. And I go back in 2 months and I'm like, how the hell did you make this into this?
That's Ileana. My jaw drops because like most people would say like this place will never look good. Like,
But that's how you get the good deals.
VSM,
That's how you get the good deals.
I think it's
and they
good,
look
yeah.
amazing. They're like
Are the places only still in Austin or are y'all going outside of
it's
Austin?
the
now?
hill country, so it's Buda,
Okay.
Cedar Park, and Austin. Right
So where's
now,
Buda? Buda
currently.
is north of Austin. I don't even know where
South
that's
of
at. I know
Austin.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
It's
on the
like
south side.
15 minutes south
We're
of
ba-
downtown.
We're in Travis County,
Okay.
Yeah.
but Buda. So it's like literally the line of Austin Buda. So it's right by William Cannon and I-35.
So you said you have
It's
how many
Buda.
acres out there? Did you say 40 acres?
40 acres,
So
yeah.
40 acres. Okay. So now it's maybe a good time to gateway into Heartwater.
Yes.
Is that where you collect
Which
your
also
rainwater?
happens to be in Buda as well.
It does have.
I know. So that's what I thought. I thought that you had told me that before,
Yeah.
that your water company, which I'm gonna hold up to the camera here so you can see, it's really, really pretty packaging. Guess who designed that? Not Michael.
Ileana.
Not Michael. The packaging is absolutely beautiful. And when we lived in the hotel for 8 months, every single day when I would leave, they would say, "Man, would you like a water?" I'm like, "Yes, I'll take 2," because they had water in an aluminum can, and it just hits different. I love water out of a metal can or aluminum can. So I think your packaging looks great. I want to hear more about what is Heartwater, and where do you get this Heartwater from?
So when we first met, now knowing a little bit about Michael's story, he's sober and he is the most hydrated man you'll ever meet.
I don't know, Sean. I bet has you beat. How many gallons of
know.
water do you drink a day? Let's just see.
Yeah.
You got your number. How many that little black thing that you have? How many of those do you
That's
fill up a day?
green tea.
Okay, so it's green tea. Okay, so
With
water,
water.
between water
With
and green
water,
tea.
yeah.
How many do you go through a day?
Probably 1.5 gallons, maybe. Maybe a little.
Got to be more than that. Just to drive from Houston to Austin, he has to get 2 Starbucks large Mucho Grande 40-ounce,
Green
whatever
tea.
they're called, green teas just to make it from point A to point B. So that's 80 ounces just on our drive. If I get through something this size in a day, it's a good
Yeah,
day.
she
Right.
drinks like
I
no
drink
water. I'm
maybe
like,
30 to 40 ounces of water. I'm always getting in
You
trouble.
probably don't drink enough water because you don't like the taste of water.
No,
No,
it's not.
seriously,
No, it's
people
not
don't
even. It's not
realize
even
that.
that. I'm
Ileana
so
nailed it.
busy that I just don't.
No, that's
and he's
true.
busy too, but I'm with customers and I can't like walk away to go get another bottle. When I'm with somebody, and I just kind of forget. I'm just not thirsty. I could live on the deserted island for 4 weeks with no water and survive.
Ileana can taste. This is before we started Heartwater. she was so picky on her water because she has like a palate for tasting water, which
I do too. And actually, I bought one of those things. I don't remember what I think it's called, the Zero water filter. This had to have been like 15 years ago because it was the house that I lived in before I met Sean. And it gave you like a water meter because it circulated everything in this machine, and you had 0 parts per million. And so then I got obsessed with it. So then I wanted a science experiment. So I bought all the major brands of water and was testing, like Houston Tap, 250
Oh my
parts
God,
per
it's
million.
horrible.
Fiji water, which is supposed to be the
Yeah.
best. It's not.
Yeah.
It had
Oh,
it had
there's-
more parts per million than in the other brand. So it's not, I mean, you're paying that much probably because they're importing it from Fiji and you're
I
paying
got
the
into sparkling
logistics,
water,
but
and that's all I drink now. Like
Topo
most
Chico.
of the day, I'll drink sparkling water
Yeah.
or any sparkling water,
this
but mainly
tastes,
Topo Chico.
but
Yeah,
tastes
this is
really
good.
We've got 3 SKUs. This is one of our 3 SKUs. We have regular plain rain, and then this is our pink Himalayan infused
yeah.
SKU.
I thought it was going to be salty, but pink Himalayan is not really that saucy unless you're doing it for a colon cleanse, which I
Right.
have done that.
And it's just got enough, pink Himalayan has 84 trace minerals, which I didn't know this until we started, researching this, but it's got the 84 trace minerals that your body needs to replenish, everything that you lose, like electrolyte wise.
Is that why you have pink Himalayan sea salt on all your
Oh
food?
yeah.
Did you
it's
know
the
this?
best form
Yeah.
of electrolytes.
Yeah, I use it in my
Mhm.
food.
And it's not salty. Yeah. Cause
Is that why when I do my colon
we
cleanse,
developed
you're
it-
supposed to use only pink Himalayan sea salt?
Right.
You take a rock, you melt it in some water, you drink it, and then everything in your body comes out like a colon cleanse
Right.
before a
If you work out or
colonoscopy.
do yoga, that's the best water.
Yeah, for hydration.
So we'll stock you guys up.
Yeah.
I like
And then
it.
we have our sparkling, which I think we brought, and we can try it later.
I'll take those.
Which also has
Yeah.
pink Himalayan because it makes it pop.
It does.
And then you said that you had 3 SKUs. So what's the other? So there's the plain
rain,
Okay.
and then pink Himalayan, and then sparkling.
Okay, got it.
Mhm. Right now, yeah.
So
what-
how do you?
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
how did it go from the rehab clinics
Right,
to
right.
like manufacturing water?
Like I was mentioning, him being sober, so hydrated. It's very serendipitous. I studied communications in college, but I went to a small private Catholic university in San Antonio. It's called Incarnate Word, and at that university, all the English courses revolved around water.
The business
And the
of
business
water.
of water.
Yeah.
And so I was like 1 credit or 2 credits away from minoring in English. So all of my English courses were about water and like studying water, the business of water, how water is the future. And so when I met Michael, he was just drinking, these bottled waters all the time. And there was like at his condo,
Ozarka, Smart Water,
Yeah.
like
so many bottles of
hundreds.
waters like everywhere, and I was like, this is so unsustainable.
Yeah.
Your condo
feel
is
guilty,
beautiful,
yeah.
but it looks disgusting.
and this
just
is
having
before sustainability was
Right.
even a topic.
this was back in 2015, 2014, 2015. And I was like, at this point, also you're buying all these bottles of water, you're wasting so much money because all those bottles are just tap water, glorified tap water that's just
exactly
going
what
back
it
into
is,
this
yeah.
plastic.
That's just filtered
And
once.
you're just like, you're just like being so unsustainable, and it's just like ridiculous. And
Yeah.
you're
It was
might as
my
well save your
habit
money.
was drinking bottled water.
Save your money
I did it
and
for
drink your tap.
convenience, yeah.
How many were you going through a day? How bad was this addiction?
I would go through like
Cases.
like
Like
a 24 pack?
25, like a 24 pack a day.
Yeah.
I can't even do
Yeah.
math that fast. But that's,
It's
that
about
might,
Sean.
That
like
might be
at
beating
least
Sean.
at least 2 gallons a day
Yeah.
of water. Yeah.
And that's
It's
why you
insane.
need the sea salt, or you would be dead.
Exactly.
Right now.
A
Just
little bit
from
off topic,
flushing
but I
out
have a
everything.
question. The hydrogen water stuff that people are talking about online, does that
It's
even
gimmicky, yeah.
do anything? Is that really
Hydrogen's good for you, but you're not gonna like all water. Like we use hydrogen in our process as well, but that's not what makes it special. Yeah, it's more of a selling point.
I haven't seen this, so I don't even know what
I'm
that is.
curious.
I
'cause
get that we can
I'm
get
like,
into a whole story about that, but that's
yeah,
like,
I'm trying to biohack everything, so I'm like,
Yeah.
is that a thing or is that just like an online
no,
thing?
I
So anyways,
think
that was
that's
off
the
topic.
thing
but
that they're trying to now make money on
gotcha. Makes
as a
sense.
buzzword, kind of like alkaline water. Like
So
Yeah.
do y'all have a bunch of distribution, or where is it mainly distributed at?
So we're with the 2 major distributors, which are Unify and KeHE. They do grocery and retail. And we're scaling, from store to store through those distributors.
So how long has this been around?
We started
21
with the
was really
idea,
Yeah.
and then we did a lot of R&D for a while.
So like right after, the whole COVID thing, we're all locked down at the house. You said I heard you earlier say you had a podcast at some point. What was that business for?
That was for Heartwater.
It was
So,
for Heartwater. Okay.
Yeah, the idea with Heartwater was that initially, we thought, sharing people's story, pouring your hearts out, because we all have a story, and I think we're all uniquely qualified, to share that story. And you never know, when you share your story or whatever hardships that may be, like, Michael with his drug addiction, that might have a ripple effect, and I'm using all these water metaphors because this is kind of like really where our minds went to, me being Miss Texas and sharing my story, him, being in recovery, sharing his story. Like, I was like, there's a common theme here. And it's like, when you're vulnerable, like water, and you're transparent, like water. And this is back 2015, where a lot of that was not going on in social media at the time. I was like, the amount of people that like come back and say, wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Like, I didn't know I needed to hear that, or you just shared my story, or, whatever that may be, like, there's a ripple effect after that. And so, like, when we started Heartwater, we started, this Pour Your Heart Out podcast, and we were bringing people on and sharing their stories. And I was like, I just want people to be more like water. And I think, that it would make the world a better place, like,
I agree. Not enough people are honest. Everybody's
yeah.
trying to put on a show, and then just be yourself, be real, put yourself out there. And it's fun to make fun of yourself because it makes you feel more normal, because we're all fucked up.
Exactly. I mean,
all of us, everyone has a story. We're all fucked up.
That was Yillianna's
exactly.
theme.
And so that's where the podcast came in, and Heartwater was, the purpose of, like, pouring your heart out. And so the color, this one's our pink Himalayan version, but like our actual, like, original color is purple. And so what I said was, that came to me in a meditation, was like, the color was, pouring your heart out. So pouring out a red heart, imagine a red heart. It's like full of, love and, just like passion or compassion or whatever that is. And pouring that into someone who has a blue heart. Right. And so what does red and blue make? It makes purple. And so that's where that color, came from, was, being able to share authentically, be transparent, and just hoping that, by sharing your story, you have that ripple effect.
I love this story. I think this is so awesome that you came up with this, all from, inspiration from a college class.
Yeah.
They kept pushing you for that too. I remember we would have to study, I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. We had to study different companies. I remember Starbucks being mine and how they became successful. And that was before coffee was a thing, because I went to college 500 years ago. But I think this is a good business to be in, because I don't even know how people survived growing up, because no one drank water.
And especially bottled water. That wasn't a thing, back then.
Yeah,
right?
It
was
like,
we drank sweet tea. My mom would put 2 cups of sugar with 2 bags of tea, and then it would coagulate in the refrigerator, and we drink that all week. So I don't even know how people survive with drinking Cokes and tea all the time. And it's crazy to me now to see how much people drink, like Sean, all the water.
Yeah.
And what's different, or what's changed that, or how did we get here today? And how does it make us more healthy,
Exactly. And the amazing thing about Heartwater is that it's rainwater. And so like, when we were developing this idea between ourselves, like, aside from the plastic just being completely unsustainable, the water source in a lot of bottled waters, even a lot of these now, there's aluminum bottled waters. What is that water source? Well, a lot of it is like I said, like glorified tap water. And so I
always say holy water from the Houston tap, filtered once.
Exactly. And
put in a nice aluminum.
Unless you're like actually looking at, like, for the water source, like, you don't know where this water's coming from. And so we're researching, like, what is the cleanest, purest, healthiest water, and also something that's, like, sustainable, because sustainability is big for both Michael and I. And it turns out to be rainwater. And so the way that we capture our rainwater is we have a warehouse in Buda, and it's 80,000 square foot warehouse. So the water never touches the ground.
Yeah.
So it lands essentially on our roof space. It's a metal roof. It goes through our patented filtration process, and then it gets bottled. But the amazing thing also about Heartwater is that, like, this water would have otherwise landed on impervious coverage. So it's not like it's like
you're stealing water from,
right. Exactly. We're not stealing water or taking water
or out
from
of Lake
any
Travis,
place,
because it keeps going down. It's not you.
Exactly.
It would go to the storm drains.
So you're collecting the water off the roof. It's coming down into your system. It's being filtered instantaneously.
Multiple filtrations. It starts even as it's being, like, going through the spouts from the roof.
And how do you store it?
In very large scale, high-end metal tanks.
So how many gallons do these things hold?
That have a special liner, so it keeps the taste really.
So what's your plan on how to scale it? Like, how are you going to add to do you just buy more warehouses, or you just how are you going to collect more rainwater? And then how much equipment do you have to add?
The beautiful thing about Heartwater is we don't have to have one centralized source because it rains everywhere in the world. So that's the way we would scale. And you got to invest in the equipment, the tanks, our filtration systems, and then obviously for the bottling equipment, a lot of different bottling machines and equipment. But we want to go to areas that are spread out through the geography of the U.S. so that we can lower the shipping.
Yes, because the RTDs that's where it eats you every time.
The shipping is where all the money goes.
It's the biggest
bottled
cost,
water
right?
business.
That's the biggest cost.
Yeah,
It is.
we have some really big projects that we actually can't announce yet, but we'll be announcing them soon.
I hope it's Seattle.
Yeah.
Rains
We've
a
got
lot there.
a really amazing partnership and launch.
We can talk off camera about
Yeah,
that.
we'll talk off camera, but it's in
That's
development right now, and there's a ton of NDAs.
So being somewhere like Austin, where it didn't rain for quite a bit this summer,
Yep.
how do you guys handle droughts? Do you have a 6 to 12 month supply of rainwater
No,
saved
we
up?
absolutely do. And actually, we bought the facility from basically a rainwater scientist that was obsessed with, building this system and was obsessed with quality rainwater. Yillianna mentioned earlier that we're doing research. What's the purest, most sustainable, highest quality source of water, which was rainwater. And there happened to be...
I was like, that's a diamond
Yeah.
It is.
that you guys found. I mean, what are the chances you found something that was already
absolutely.
produced as someone who's already studied it, researched it,
and got
that
licensed.
knew?
You have to have a license from TCEQ, the state of Texas, and it's very hard to get. He had to wait multiple years to get that license, and we acquired the facility and the license.
So did you guys pay him, as
He's
a contractor?
partnered with
or-
us. He's
Okay.
equity partners. So, we did a mix of stock and SBA loan, actually.
So what was
bought the facility.
what was he doing with the rainwater? Was he selling it before too?
He had his own bottled water company. He was doing plastic bottles, and
But
I'll let
he's
you-
a scientist. I mean,
yeah,
and so
he truly is. He's
not a salesperson. That's where you guys come in.
right.
You
And
make
so
good
we're
we're
like,
partners.
so close to him and his
that's
wife.
why it's so great that we can, and they were a husband and wife partnership
Yeah.
as well. But it was
Amazing
like,
people.
okay, well, you're already doing this, but let's package it and market it, and let's do this together. And so that's kind of how it came
And
about.
just innovate the way that you're scaling the business, because the only way that traditional bottled water companies have scaled, they don't invest in their product at all.
No,
The
it's
source
straight
is
marketing.
tap water.
It's
It's
straight
all
marketing.
branding and marketing. So the customer's just getting the lowest quality product, but the company spent $50 million on marketing. Like the Kardashians are drinking it, or it's on this show or this, and they're spending so much money on marketing. So that's really what you're paying for, is just a brand.
And what are you guys selling in annual sales per year for Smart
So
Water?
this company's still relatively small because we've been working on a completely contrarian business model to the traditional bottled water business. We're not looking to just pour $50 million into marketing. I'm using that as a term, but just blow it up through marketing. We have a very special source.
Who runs which company? Who's the CEO? Y'all are doing so many things. Do y'all have a CEO that runs the Heartwater? Or
We do. We hired a CEO to run Heartwater, and then really I'm formally the CEO of Infinte, but we really just both run everything together. We don't have
so
it's kind of organic.
Like you guys, husband and wife team,
Yeah.
Everybody asks, how do you guys work together? How do you not fight about business, and how do you keep things separate? I think the amazing thing about at least, our relationship is we do very different things. So with, really both companies, I guess, Michael's a lot of the sales and the numbers behind, both companies. And then I'm a lot of the branding, the vision, the look, the feel, and I think obviously, you have to work cohesively together, but we both know our strengths and our weaknesses. I don't want to dabble in what he does, and he doesn't want to do what I do. And so I think that's how we don't step on each other's toes too, is we both respect the business would not be, or businesses would not be what they are today if like without his strengths or without my strengths. And so I think like, we both have that mutual respect for one another to like, know where we stand and like know our strengths and weaknesses to not like step on each other.
Lean into our talents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if you have the same vision, the
Yeah.
overall vision,
Yes.
you're going to have disagreements day in and day out, even in a relationship and a business.
Yeah.
And if you have the same overall vision, you'll eventually get to there. You'll get there. And that's what makes a relationship successful and a business really.
Oh, so with the exception of the last couple weeks.
You
Sean and
buy
I,
another house.
It's just like a business partner.
Sean and I get along so well. We always have. He doesn't poke at me, as I always say. Any other relationship that I was ever in, and if I had someone poking at me,
Yep.
and not just stepping back, this would have never worked.
Right.
But one thing he said to me is like that when we first met. He goes, "That is one thing is we'll never operate a business together." He's like, because I like you too much, and I don't want to fuck that up. Because he's worked with family members before, and we've seen that happen. And it's just it's really hard, and it's truly a treasure when you can cohabitate in a business setting
Right.
with your significant other and not fight or not have disagreements and take that home with you. So that's great that you guys could do that. And it's
Right.
working so well for you guys. This is actually the podcast, our first business to ever do together. I wouldn't consider like any of the flip houses that we've done together a business that we do together. He's normally handled like all the contracting stuff, and then I just help kind of oversee and tie up loose ends. But yeah.
But I'm confident now that it'll work. I know I might have said that a long time ago, but I'm super confident now in our relationship, and I know how we work together and where.
He told me the other day, he's like, I don't ever give you pushback, but I've been giving you like 75% pushback, and I am sorry.
Aw.
And don't you forget it.
But I think also, we don't know you guys super well, but the times that I've met both of you guys, like, I think me and you are very blessed. We've got like nice guys that are also like,
Can put
okay,
up
they
with us.
see they see the vision, and they're like, you know what? Okay, like let me
Yeah.
back off a little bit.
Yeah, and I know, and I'm aware I'm with it work too. I'm very hard to work for, and I'm very hard to work with because I expect perfection.
Yeah,
and I like
definitely.
things to be done from point A to point B. And I'm an analyzer. I like to look at every little detail and make sure it was done exactly the way that I want it. Some people call it micromanaging. Sean is a dreamer. He wants
That's
to
Michael
like
and I.
buy something and he gets excited about it, and then he loses his like spark of excitement, and then he's already looking somewhere else before that project is done, and then starting something else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, over here, chaos. Can we complete one fucking thing before we move to the next?
That's literally us. Like to the point where like this last Buta facility, the inpatient facility, it was
Like, are you looking in a mirror right now?
Yeah, no, really. The 40,000 square foot facility, like I know every single inch of that facility. Like I was there with the workers. Like
how
I
I
know
am.
every single inch. And like if things are like one little thing's off, like I know what's going on. And like I'm like, no, we can't open. Like we have to stop. We have to stall. And he's
And
like,
he
he's
is-
like, no,
yes,
like it's
exactly.
fine. Nobody's gonna notice. And I'm like, no, absolutely. And
I don't want to start something until it's perfected. I
Yeah,
want it
same.
tested like forwards and backwards. I want to check from the client's perspective. Everything I do and when I train my people is always check it all the different ways.
Right.
The other day we didn't check for a new contract we were doing for my bridal business, and we checked it on the desktop version, not the mobile version.
Oh, yeah.
And it was fucked up, and somebody signed all this shit in the wrong area. I was like, why did she put 13 as her phone number? And I realized that all the things were falling in the wrong place. I'm like, see, I didn't test all the way. But Sean is one of those, get in there.
Yep.
Figure it out once you get in there and perfect it as you go.
That's
That's
But
the
I
only
think-
way
I
I
think
learn.
for
Start,
It's like
start selling.
But I think for a
Yeah.
born entrepreneur and someone who's truly just like balls to the wall, like taking all the risks, has no fear, that's the personality.
Yep.
But thank God you have women like us to keep your freaking socks
Absolutely.
and shoes on.
And
Exactly.
Yillianna's very humble too. She's a licensed real estate agent. She's a certified yoga instructor. So she adds also a lot of different aspects to the business beyond just the construction and interior design and refurbishing. She, also is our agent on all of the properties as well.
And I think it's
and
equally as
handles that
important.
business side of it.
Yeah, and it's equally as important whatever you do, because just like she said, everything in today's world with social media is
Yeah.
about marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, back then everybody was just paid actors, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But people want to feel like the product they're using feels good, looks
Right.
good. You know what I mean? And all of that goes hand in hand with, you being the risk taker, her being more of like the developmental and getting
Like,
it out
let's
there and
hone
the
it.
promotion part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And rap, I think both of those things just kind of pull it together. Sean is not good at design. I mean, thank God we have a designer to help me. He's good at like the structure, the shell. And then we take it, the designer and I take it from there and build it out and bring everything to life.
It gives me a headache when you're trying to pick out furniture and stuff. But I can do everything. I can
Oh,
buy
I know
the
what you
property.
mean.
and
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I can do the floor plan. I mean, I can do
Yeah.
everything. But yeah,
Yeah.
The furniture and stuff, it's I hate it so bad.
So does
I'm
Mike.
I'm like, Ileana, run with it. I
We
don't
were
even
actually
question
talking about
her.
that on the way over here,
I don't
and
question her
it's
at all.
like-
Even with our new house that we're moving into, I'm like,
Oh,
you
see,
have
Sean's
a way
picky.
better eye than me. You can see the grand vision and then reverse engineer it. I'm like, why are you even asking what I
Yeah, I design
I
things.
value his opinion.
No, she really does. She really does. And we like the same things.
Yeah, that's
which
good.
is-
That's good that you guys have
which
the
is
same
lucky.
taste. And him and I,
Yeah.
for the most part, have the same taste too. But he will straight up tell me, even for my business, I'll be like, "What do you think of my new fragrance packaging? That sucks. Don't do it. It looks terrible." And then I'm like, "Well, give me an idea of what you mean by that." He can't explain himself with words.
He's
what
like,
he
"It
doesn't
just needs
like
to be
about
redesigned."
it. He's like, "Yeah, just start over. I hate it. It's trash."
When I see it, I know.
That's good though.
Yeah, it became a big social media thing where I was like, "I want rollerball packaging." He thinks I should do a spray, and it would just be a big argument. So everybody was
Oh
getting
my
involved in
gosh.
that too.
I
And
go,
I'm like,
"Well, why
this is the wave of the future is rollerballs." And anyways, still to this day, he's like,
Sean
"So
puts his hands up.
how are
Yeah,
the
we're good.
numbers doing with your rollerballs? I bet you could have done a spray be 4 times as much."
Oh my gosh,
Know-it-all.
that's hilarious.
But anyway, thank you guys for coming out today. I loved hearing your story. I
you.
loved hearing what you guys have done together. I can't wait to hear about the new announcement that you said you couldn't talk about because you have
Yes.
the NDAs.
Coming
But
soon,
how
24.
can people follow you guys to find out later what's next to come?
I think on both of our Instagrams, we'll tag it here at the bottom, and then we can tag Michael's too. We'll make those announcements, and then definitely, continue following Heartwater and Infinite Recovery, and they'll be announced there as well.
We're gonna start marketing finally.
Yeah, we've actually never marketed for Infinite, and we just
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you that earlier. Is that something
grew
that
a
you
lot
can really market?
organically and word of
Yeah.
mouth from our alumni and
right,
the families.
right. So we're actually just now like on both ends for Heartwater and Infinite. Like we're just now really. We've built the business. We really both have to like start.
We've got the
We're gonna market now.
product
but, yeah.
perfect and like I said, developments to come on the business model, and now it's going to be a really marketing roadshow.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much for having us. We're really honored, both of you, and thank you for having us in your amazing house.
Well, I can't wait to hear the follow-up because there's going to be something good to talk to you guys about 6
We'll
to
have
12
to-
months, I'm
Y'all
sure.
have to
We'll
come
have to
back.
do a second podcast follow-up.
We'll do a
Yeah, I'll have to
follow-up.
come
back.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you. We really enjoyed it. Thank you.